have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
Hey everyone, thank you for taking the time to view this video. I really hope that this is going to take your drone photography to the next level. Having a drone is brilliant. We can now achieve so many more angles that we just can't get when we're standing on the ground. Unfortunately though, that adds another level of difficulty. More often than not, drone pilots, when they're flying their drones, are more concentrating on physically flying it and making sure the drone is doing what it should be doing and it's not going to fly away or we have other problems. Now because of this, it's a lot easier to stick your drone in auto mode and just rely on the drone to take the pictures that it thinks are right. That can give us some great results, but unfortunately sometimes it can't. In difficult lighting conditions or in variable lighting conditions, relying on auto is not a good idea. So this is where this series of videos steps in. We're going to give you the knowledge and teach you how to properly take photos. We're going to go through composition and framing. We're then also going to look at how you actually capture those photos using correct settings and shooting in manual. Ultimately, we want the best quality we can get with our drones. So by taking a few steps, making sure you understand what each setting does and what's going to give you that best quality is really, really valuable. So without further ado, let's crack on. First off, we're going to look at framing and composition. Now, framing and composition is one of the most important parts of photography. With a poorly composed or framed image, it just has an amateur feel that isn't particularly great. What we want is to start grabbing the viewer's attention, make sure that they are drawn into our images. You could have the best camera and the best drone in the world, but with a poorly framed image, you're just not going to get anyone's attention. So what actually is framing? Well, a direct definition is framing is the presentation of visual elements in an image, especially the placement of the subject in relation to other objects. Framing can make an image more aesthetically pleasing and it can keep the viewer's focus on the framed objects. Right, so let's just break that down and make that a bit clearer. When we point a camera at a subject, that subject could be anything. It could be a mountain, a road, it could be a person, a car. The subject isn't really important. What we don't want to do is just point our camera at the subject and take a picture. It's not going to create a particularly great image. What we want to do is point the camera at the subject, but then move the subject within the frame of the camera. We then find what we think is the most visually appealing style. So to help us out, there are a few techniques that we can use, and in photography, they're called rules. The important thing to remember in all of this is that as the photographer, you have complete creative freedom. What you think looks best might not appeal to someone else, but they're your images, you're taking them, so you do what you think looks best. The key to good framing and composition is keeping some of these rules in mind. You don't have to use all of them, but keeping them in mind and using them where you feel that they work is going to give your images a really good visual appeal. Let's crack on with our first rule, and that is the rule of thirds. This is probably one of the most common rules that you'll see in pretty much every photograph that you look at. This rule just really helps to achieve well-balanced and interesting images. So this rule suggests that we divide our images into 9 equal parts. We have 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. We can then position important or interesting elements within our images on these lines or at the point that they intersect. So to help visualize this, we've got some examples here. So let's take a look. So in this first image, if we were to divide our image into 9 equal parts using these horizontal and vertical lines, we have 1/3 here and 1/3 here. We then have 1/3 here and 1/3 here. That then ends up in 9 equal parts throughout our images. Now what we can do in this rule is position interesting or important subjects on one of those lines or on the point that they intersect. So in this example, this quite clearly explains, if we were to cut this image into a third here, we've got all of this textured water on this right-hand third. We then have 2/3 of this clear blue sea. What we've also got is this surfer. They're pretty much positioned on this third. What's interesting in this image is that this surfer is positioned pretty much in the center. Now, as I say, you don't have to always use these rules. You can break some, you can use some. But by keeping some of them in mind, it's going to give you a really interesting and well-composed image. So moving on to another image. Again, this is another good example of the rule of thirds. We have the Spinnaker Tower in Portsmouth here in the UK. This is positioned on this left-hand third. We have another taller tower here. This is positioned on the right hand third. Equally, the horizon is positioned on this top third here. And one final example, again this is another good one, there's lots going on in this picture. If we were to divide this up horizontally, we have the horizon of all the mountains on this third. There's not much going on this third. We've got 2/3 of the image with this, it looks like a fjord in Norway. We then also have vertically, we've got this ridgeway on this third here. We have this ship kind of positioned on this third. So by keeping the rule of thirds in mind, just helps achieve these well-balanced images. With these examples, we could have positioned these pretty much more central, but the one thing that really stands out in amateur photography is having the horizon in the center of the image. Ultimately, adding too much sky just doesn't really add much to your image. In this one is a good example that we've got this really nice wispy clouds with the blue sky, but we only need to see a bit of that. The interest is down below. If we were to add more sky, it's not adding more to the picture, it's just taking away from what else is there, adding interest. So as I say, looking through these examples, you don't have to live by this rule and always position everything on a third. As you've seen in some of these, some of them are positioned on thirds, some other elements aren't. Use this in your images, it's going to help balance them, but equally think about how you might be able to break that rule with certain elements just to add a bit more visual interest.